Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. I will be saying we quite a lot of times. So we is the Leipziger Baumwollspinnerei Verwaltungsgesellschaft MBH. We have a short form which is called Spinnerei. Spinnerei in German is at the same time referring to our history as the formerly greatest or biggest cotton spinning mill in continental Europe. There was a bigger one in Manchester actually. And at the same time, Spinnerei means in German like being positively crazy. So it's a perfect marketing word actually to what happens in our development here. The fascinating thing is that you still have the factory the way you see it on this picture. So it's really kept and preserved the way you see it here. It's about 100,000 square meters of land. So it's 6,000 square meters where you have the factory, which starts on the left-hand side actually with the living area of the former workers. And then it developed to the right until you have the whitish building here, which is actually the newest building coming from 1907 and is the only building which is a steel concrete building and might actually have the same problems as a rock factory, for example, has, whereas the brick buildings are very solid and we don't have to invest too much money to enable new tenants to live in there. We still have the allotments on the other side where the kind of good workers could grow their vegetable, and where there used to be a blacksmith since the 50s, there is a kindergarten where the female workers could bring their kids, go to work, pick them up again. And actually we refurbished this kindergarten as one of the first development steps. So now artists can bring in their kids there. And what you can't see behind the cotton spinning mill, behind the Spinnerei, you have the graveyard of Plagwitz. This is the quarter of Leipzig. So with the kindergarten, the Spinnerei and the graveyard, from cradle to grave, we can deliver everything in this small town, which we have here, actually. So this is just a picture from history, a good 100 years ago. I would like to draw your attention on the windows and on the brick facade which we have here, because this is a very important element why Spinnerei works as it works today, actually. This is the situation we bought, actually, in 2001. The Spinnerei had been running through as a cotton spinning mill over all the GDR time, and then by the end of the GDR it was bought by a private investor who was still trying to produce a special product, but most of the spaces actually fell empty. But at the same time, he let new people move in. So you had artists moving in, you had craftsmen moving in, you had people moving in who were looking for individual living spaces. And this was a great chance for this property because it was never really empty, it was never a brownfield. So you had a parallelism of actually production being put down and new people moving in, mainly creative young people actually. When we bought the factory in 2001, the real estate market crashed right after we had bought the factory, and when we went to a bank and we said, factory East Germany artists, then those were the magic words to get money, so we didn't get any money at all, so we had a problem. And actually we were developers, so we're coming from real estate development, and we wanted to do a profitable, good development in this factory, but now we didn't have any money, so we had a problem, and if you have a problem, I think you think different about things, so you start analyzing more carefully what do you have here actually. And there was one bank who had called us a brick buyer, and so we thought let's have a close look at our bricks. Here's for example the facade of the second Spinnerei, built in 1887, and you see it's very massively built. You have the brick walls, they're about 1 meter thick, and the biggest treasure actually are the windows. The windows are out of casted iron and they're double layer, so you have like 40 centimeters of air cushion between them, so they're isolating actually, they're insulating. And even on the roofs you have like a cork insulation, and that's due to the fact that the cotton spinning mills had to guarantee a constant temperature of 23 degrees, and then they could run the cotton properly to cotton strings. And that's what we really benefit today from, because the next picture is, for example, after renovation. So we just take out the old glass and put in new glass, and that's it. That's all we do to the outside of the buildings. And we can actually reinvest 300 euros per square meter to enable a new tenant to move in. But at the same time, we try to attract the people who had been there from the beginning. So it was very clear that the people who were there from the beginning were the right people to do this development with, because they had come by themselves. They had seen this as an attractive thing to be, attractive thing to live in. And so they came, and they were actually the critical mass of creative potential to build up what we have today. This is just a picture from the inside, how it looks. So big open spaces, which have been divided over the last years, of course. What I told you about, what you saw was the hardware. We had software as well. When we started there, we didn't buy it, because you can't buy people. But we were very lucky, for example, to have people like Neo Rauch. He's the main person standing for the new Leipzig school, which is really worldwide well known. And he was one of the pioneers starting this project, and he still is there. So that actually shows that we did a quite sensible development, that people like him stay even over a period of 15 years. He could live anywhere in the world, actually, if he wanted. You can see a little bit about Leipzig New School. It's figurative, narrative, surrealistic painting. You can see not finished in the background of his work. But other artists as well, Christiane Baumgartner, for example, she is in all the big museums in the world and is doing like big woodcuts. Or like Michael Triegel, he was last year picked to do the portrait of the Pope, because he's one of the best portrait painters of the world, actually. And what we started off in the beginning was that we saw art might be a topic for us. Art might be the main identity creating source for this development we have here. And we dedicated one building to a non-for-profit use, which is about 20,000 square meters in this building. And started off with projects together with a foundation called Federkiel. And this is just an impression of the exhibition called Extreme Houses. In 2004, 2005, we actually managed to get the galleries on the property. So before that, we had like artists, quite a lot, and we got more artists. But the final breakthrough, actually, as a place, well-known place, was that we got the galleries. Here you have the impression of the show space of the gallery Eigene Art, who is the main gallery and one of the main galleries in Germany. And the other galleries followed, so we had about 11 galleries in the end. And this is what happened to the property then as well. So you had touristic mass interest happening mainly on the Rundgänge. These are appointments where all of the galleries open together new spaces and new shows. And a lot of people come, a lot of public comes, and the very important people come too, after you have success, of course. And then actually we have a period now that the main work in projecting, in refurbishing, in renting out is quite finished, because we're quite full with the project Spinnerei. And now we're more concentrating on communication, on quality management, and on the different things happening, for example, mainly in the non-for-profit spaces. And one important thing is a kids and youth program, which has been installed there over the last years, which is called Kreative Spinner, so Creative Spinner. And it's not a project where you have like kids be creative now, please. It's a project which is really run by artists who have their studios in the Spinnerei and which teach them how to be an artist, or how is the living model of being an artist. This very nice picture of the photography workshop with the kids. Of course, we have professional interest. Through here, it was a Mexican gallery. The gallerist in the middle is clearly a Mexican guy, you can see. And he had a 3 years period in the Spinnerei with his gallery, Hilario Galguera. And he did great exhibitions, even bringing in like very big names like Damien Hirst, like Daniel Buren, or Yanis Kounelis. So he was very well connected to some big names he brought into some exhibitions, and it was very good fun having him around, actually. And this is what happens all the time, that galleries come in for a certain period and then they move out again. So you always have an international influence coming to the place as well. Where do we go in Spinnerei? I think it's very important never to be finished. This always has to stay a project. So we don't want to reach the stage where we say this is finished. This has to stay a living organism. So it's always good to have some spaces left which we don't rent out, so we can kind of dream and have a new vision what could happen on these spaces. At the same time, what has increased the last years is a great interest of young people coming to Spinnerei, spending a year there, half a year there,